the third time we've restarted this video, so if anyone is here from the last two, appreciate you sticking with me. It's hilarious that we're watching, you're watching Driven to Distraction when I am trying to read this through a lot of distractions, which is, I'm just hanging out, watching my boy over here, right, and my pups. I decided to start this. We were inside and we had a show on. I thought we were good to go, but my outside door wasn't all the way latched. And then one of my dogs poked its nose in, opened the door, and was like, hey. And then my boy was like, oh, outside? Let's run outside. So then here we are. So we're gonna, hi bud, good job. Did you stand up on the rock? Did you stand up on the rock? Good. Can you jump off? Are you gonna jump off the rock? You gonna jump off the rock? No. You just want to stand on it. King of the rock. This is Jazzy, so he's going to be here asking me to throw his ball. So that's going to be a thing. So we are still amongst many distractions. But what we're going to do is we're going to read chapter 2 of Driven to Distraction, as much as we can get through in the next 20 minutes. Chapter 2, I sang in my chains like the sea, the child with ADD. Our first knowledge of attention deficit disorder came from children, before we knew that the syndrome continued into adulthood. ADD is now one of the conditions within the field of childhood development about which we know a great deal. A conservative estimate would be that 5% of school-aged children have ADD, and yet it remains poorly understood by the general public, often going unrecognized or misdiagnosed. The hallmark symptoms of ADD, distractibility, impulsivity, and high activity, are so commonly associated with children in general that the diagnosis is often not considered. A child with undiagnosed ADD is thought to be just being a child, only more so. It wouldn't occur to anyone that the more so was a tip-off to a medical diagnosis unless they knew something about that diagnosis in advance. Where does the more so leave off and the neurological syndrome of ADD begin? How can we tell a spoiled child from an ADD child? How can we tell a child with emotional problems from a child with ADD? One must look carefully at the child's individual history. The diagnosis rests primarily upon the history. There are also psychological tests that can provide additional evidence in making a diagnosis. Certain subtests of the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, WISC, a standard test for children, may suggest ADD. Typically, the subscores for digit span, arithmetic, and coding are low in ADD. Additionally, there is often a wide split between what is called the verbal subscore and what is called the performance subscore. There are other tests that attempt to assess attention and impulsivity, but it should be stressed there is no one definitive test for ADD. The most reliable diagnostic tool is the individual's history as elicited from the child, from parents, and very importantly, from teacher reports. And this is where, like myself, that's why it's easy to diagnose ADD, ADHD with me, is for my history of jumping from job to job, like life decisions, jumping from hobby to hobby, like fully, and then having the hallmarks of the good, like the creative sides, and like having strengths in those, but then not following through. And this is over a lifetime. Moving, impulsivity, this is like giant things that have lasted my entire life, that when compared to the majority of my peers who have, when they decided what they wanted to do and went to school for the thing and then got their job and then like they've had their career, maybe they've had a couple career changes, but not 20, and not so drastic from one thing to another that they just have a more structured and kind of secure lives built for themselves. There is no clear line of demarcation between ADD and normal behavior. Rather, one must make a judgment based on comparison of the individual to his or her peer group. What I was just saying, right? If he or she stands out as markedly more distractible, impulsive, and restless, if there is no other apparent cause for this behavior, such as disruption of the family or substance abuse or depression or other medical condition, then the diagnosis of ADD can be entertained. However, only a professional who has experience in working with ADD should make diagnosis. The two most common errors in the diagnostic process are missing the diagnosis or making the diagnosis too often. The most common reason for missing the diagnosis is not knowing about ADD in the first place. Not every teacher, not every psychologist, not every medical doctor knows about ADD. Even professionals who know about ADD can miss the diagnosis if they rely too heavily on psychological testing. While psychological testing can be very helpful, it is not definitive. Children who have ADD can appear to not have it when psychologically tested. This is because structure, novelty, and motivation associated with the testing procedure can effectively, for the moment, treat the child's ADD. The child may be focused by the one-on-one structure of the testing, focused by the novelty of the situation, and be so motivated to do well that the motivation overrides the ADD. For these reasons, the clinical data, the teacher's reports, the parents' reports, the evidence of human eyes and ears over time must take precedence over the data garnered through psychological testing. The second most common error in the diagnostic process is the reverse of the first. It's overcalling ADD, which is really dangerous. And this is something that I still think that happens. And it's just so detrimental to, understanding ADD and then knowing that ADD is a real thing, because people are just like, oh, it's ADD, or oh, I'm so ADD, or that's ADD, or etc. So let's say about it. It's overcalling ADD, seeing it everywhere. A careful evaluation must take into account a number of conditions that can look just like ADD. Some of these thyroidism, require testing by a physician in order to be ruled out. In addition to making sure that no other medical condition is causing the symptoms, one must recognize that ADD is a comparative diagnosis. It depends not just on the presence of symptoms, but upon the intensity and duration of those symptoms. Most children are distractible, most children are impulsive, and most children are restless some of the time. The vast majority of children do not have ADD, and one must be very careful not to make the diagnosis so easily that it loses meaning or becomes a fad, just like what we were talking about. For those children who do in fact have ADD, it is of great importance that the diagnosis be made as early as possible, so as to minimize the damage. Really? There you go. So as to minimize the damage of to self-esteem that usually occurs when these children are misunderstood and labeled defiant, odd, or bad. Yeah, I got in trouble a lot when I was younger, in school. Like, not big trouble, but just, told to settle down and stuff like that. And I was always, I've said it earlier in some of the other videos, I have gripped my desk. I've gripped my desk. I remember this in as early as 4th grade, holding on to it to not run out of the classroom, because I just couldn't stand sitting there and then listening, and I just wanted to, be doing something other than sitting in this structured environment. So people are asking where I'm from. I'm originally from Alaska, in the center of the United States. For anybody that's not, I don't know where everyone's from. But I live in Washington State now, which is on the West Coast. Let's see. For those children who do in fact have ADD, it is of great importance that the diagnosis be made as early as possible. Okay, we talked about that. To minimize the damage of self-esteem. The life of a child and his or her family with undiagnosed ADD is a life full of unnecessary struggle, accusation, guilt, recrimination, underachievement, and sadness. The sooner the diagnosis can be made, the sooner unnecessary pain can cease. While diagnosis and treatment do not put an end to the difficulties ADD creates in the child's life, they at least allow for those difficulties to be known for what they are and not to be blamed on the child, right? It's like, this is a thing. This is real, okay? You're not bad. You're not, like, this is a thing that the child is dealing with, and it is a tough struggle, but when you know about it, it's just a lot easier to get through, right? Growing up, we had no, like, we're a single mom, 4 kids. There was no diagnosing anything. There was no doctors, therapists. Like, there's just no money to go see people, right? And so no insurance, that kind of stuff. So, like, I was just left, to my own devices. Jazzy, bro. So Jazzy here is continuing to ask for some fetchies. So again, pardon the distractions, but we will try to continue here. We all want our children to develop confidence, a solid self-esteem that can sustain them for over time. It is an invisible but decisive process, the weaving of self-esteem, drawing in the threads of experience every day. Threads that will last a lifetime. If those threads are made of humiliation, failure, and embarrassment, then the cloth will not be worn with much comfort. Dang. That's heavy. We should do everything we can to see to it that the threads are made of success, confidence, and a sense of fairness to things. Understanding early on that a child has a learning disorder, such as ADD, is one way to help reach that goal. Throughout history, there have been many great men and women who have had various learning disabilities that they managed to overcome. Although it can't be proved he had it, Mozart would be a good example of a person with ADD. Impatient, impulsive, distractible, energetic, emotionally needy, creative, innovative, irreverent, and a maverick. Structure is one of the hallmarks of the treatment of ADD, and the tight forms within which Mozart worked show how beautifully structure can capture the dart here. Dart there, genius. Can capture the dart here, dart there, genius of the ADD mind. In fact, there is a powerfully positive aspect to ADD and learning disorders in general, a positive aspect that is as yet ill-defined. You might describe many with ADD as having a special something, a hard to pin down yet undeniable potential. If that potential can be tapped, the results can be spectacular. Albert Einstein, Edgar Allan Poe, George Bernard Shaw, and Salvador Dali were all expelled from school, and Thomas Edison was at the bottom of his class. Abraham Lincoln and Henry Ford were pronounced by their teachers to show no promise. The novelist John Irving nearly flunked out of high school because of an undiagnosed learning disability. There was a long, long list of people who have achieved greatness in adult life after performing abysmally in school due to undiagnosed learning disabilities. Unfortunately, there was a longer list of those people whose spirits were broken in school, who therefore never got the chance to realize their potential. Right? So again, I mean, so much of this, there's times where I think it's like opportunity, right? Like the parents need to be so aware and educated and willing to work through this, to see this as something real, to help their children understand where they are, who they are, and the things that they're dealing with, and then find ways to either help them succeed in school, or to find alternative schooling, or to also, if they end up not doing well in school, letting them know that that isn't the end all to life, to their dreams, to their hopes, right? So with that as an introduction, let me take you now into the world of Maxwell McCarthy. Let's see how long we've got for Maxwell. How long has it been here? is 12:12. We've got 15 more minutes. We've got 15 more minutes that we can read here. See how far we can get. We're on page 54 right now for anyone that has the book and is following along. When Maxwell was born, his mother held him in her arms and cried tears of joy. He was the son Sylvia and Patrick McCarthy had wished for after their 2 daughters. Maxwell stared up at his mom as his dad leaned across the pillows and drew little circles with his forefinger on Maxwell's wrinkled forehead. "He looks like my father," Patrick said. "You can't tell this soon, silly." "I just have a feeling," Patrick replied. His father, Maxwell McCarthy, whom this new Maxwell was named, had been a prominent Boston lawyer, the rod and staff of Patrick's life, his hero and his guide. The values of intellectual achievement and rock-solid integrity combined with a hard-drinking, convivial bonhomie made the senior Maxwell an almost legendary figure. As Patrick looked down at his son now, he saw some of his old man in him. The large head size, he concluded, meant brains. The twinkle in the baby's eyes meant joie de vivre. And the integrity would come from a disciplined upbringing. A gurgling, swaddling package now, Maxwell McCarthy was destined for great things. Sylvia's fantasies drifted more toward the simple but boundless joy of holding this little baby. Oh, she had thought about his future before he was born. "I got you, bubby. I got you. Help. Good job."
Hey.
Did you do another boo-boo? Hey, you got another boo-boo in there? Well, so Bro had a poopy diaper earlier, and I changed it. That was one of our reasons to quit one of the earlier videos. And there's a new one, so I'm not going to let him sit in that. And I'm going to go ahead and end this. We'll pick back up at the beginning in the next video that I get. Sorry, this was kind of a wild ride today. It's tough. There's not a lot of time to do these, and I've started them, and I want to commit. I want to follow through. I feel like, how hilarious would it be? And I don't know if poignant is the right word, but if I couldn't finish the task of reading this book after I'd already committed to it, which is partly, I mean, I've had these books for 10 years and haven't read them, and that's part of why I'm reading them here in this, live series on YouTube, is to stay committed to them. And I've got a couple friends that have been tuning in, and that have said, "Hey, keep reading. Like, we're counting on you now." So I'm trying to find the time, because I'm also in school, again, the master's program, etc. And I've got all these house projects around. And this may have to be how these are being read, but I'll try next time to make sure to just knock it out with less distractions, if possible. And yeah, so thanks for everyone that's made it this far, and we'll pick back up. Let's see, chapter 2, page 54. So we only got through 4 pages, but whatever. This is just the world we live in, man. We got to adapt and overcome. So we'll see you the next time that I can make it back.